Hello and welcome to a new edition of the Villan podcast and a new addition to the offering, Stats Corner, with myself, Josh Henwood, and Stephen Hickingbotham from Villa Analytics. How are you, Stephen?
I'm alright, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Back home from work on a Tuesday, the England on the telly in a bit. Can't be too bad.
Hopefully seeing Tyrone Mings.
Hopefully seeing Tyrone Mings, yeah. Maybe from off the bench. I'd just like something. Just a little nugget
just the
for
cap,
us.
Just the cap. That's all we need.
Yeah, that's all you need. Yeah, I like that. So, for everyone listening, and for your first-time listeners that have come off the back of Stephen's following, hello. We're hoping for Stats Corner to be a regular feature week by week, breaking down the games in a more analytical and stats-driven fashion. Stephen bringing the facts, and myself bringing the beauty. No, but in all seriousness, some opinion and maybe some context. Each week we'll look at where the games are won and lost, hone in on some of the key players, and look ahead to the next games. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good to me.
Fantastic. Well, I hope so, because we've been discussing it long enough.
Yeah.
So let's crack into it. So let's cast our minds back to last Saturday. Awful day from start to finish.
Yeah.
Crystal Palace, away from home. It's not a great place to go to anyway, Selhurst Park, but has to be done. 1-0 loss. Terrible circumstances at the end, obviously. But what to you were the key areas where we lost that game?
Okay, so clearly we weren't good enough. On the expected goals, we lost 1.43 to 0.31.
So quite a loss then on that one. So practically 1.5 to 0, pretty much.
Yeah, and 0.68 to 0.12 in the first half as well. Like, we just couldn't get going and didn't improve really.
Yeah.
Palace had 13 shots in our box. We had 3 in theirs. You're not going to score with that, are you? Really?
Well, no, and also I felt like we were. Every chance that we had, we were trying to shoot from distance, or that we weren't able to actually penetrate their box at all.
Well, Palace average shot distance was 17.36 metres, and it was 25.52 for Aston Villa. That's
well outside the box.
Tells the story, yeah.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the wingers weren't at it. They created 0.03 expected assists, which is less than Andros Townsend for Palace, and he was on the pitch for 5 minutes. So.
Well, that tells you the story. But I think that tells you how well Palace played, though. Their dominance came from their pressure. In that, I don't know about you, but I felt like just on watching the game and watching it progress, we couldn't get it out from our defenders to our midfielders. The centre of midfield was completely trapped. We couldn't get the ball out to the wingers, and when we did, it was pressed directly in.
There's a stat called PPDA for short, which is passes per defensive action, and essentially, the lower the number is, the higher the team's been pressing.
Yeah.
And for Palace, that was 7.68. For us, it was 11.67. To give some context to that, an average sort of thing you'd be looking at is maybe 9 or 10. So right. Palace were really, really strongly onto us. And the 15 minutes spell where Palace got their goal, we had 29% possession. We just couldn't do a thing there.
Yeah, I mean, that is to be expected, I guess, in a sense, when you consider how strong the possession game is now with dominance. So when you are dominant, you are more possession-minded now. I mean, I think that's the Pep Guardiola effect more than anything else, but that's maybe for another day. But after the red card, we did go into our shells a lot and start repelling attacks. So that's not too crazy to think that we'd only have a third of possession. I think that the crazy thing is more as to, even from the start, as you said, we never got going in the pressing that Palace had. It just completely wrong-footed us.
Well, I think I've seen quite a few people suggesting Wesley isn't good enough off the back that he's got 1 goal from 4 games. But you look at, I'll just read you a couple of numbers. This is
Go for it.
Players and the number of passes they made to Wesley during the game.
Yeah.
Grealish made 1 to him.
Yeah.
2 from McGinn. 1 from Douglas Luiz, which is the same number of times he passed to Tom Heaton, 2 from Trezeguet, 3 from Jota, and that's it. That's all he got the whole game.
Wesley has not had anywhere near enough service to him.
Exactly.
People have been saying that since the very start. The Tottenham game, he had no service. The Bournemouth game, any chance that he got, he had a defender directly on him, and it was probably from 6 yards out. The Everton game, we actually played like we had a player like Wesley, and we knew how to play him. And hey-ho, he got a goal. So that was a shock.
That's a really, really good point, yeah. He in the Everton game, he actually managed to, find some space, and exactly like you said, we played as if we had a player like Wesley.
Yeah, you've got to put the ball
unsurprisingly
into space. You've got to put the ball into space to him on the ground. Through balls.
I do think against Bournemouth as well, there were a couple of times where he managed to find that little bits of space, especially, the chance he made for Trezeguet.
Yeah.
That one. And it just shows what he can do to you when you use him.
Yeah, exactly. I think that he's got to be the most underutilised player that Villa have at the moment, of which is terrible when you think about it, because he's our sole striker.
Exactly. If you're playing one up top, you've got to use that one.
Exactly.
Or you're not going to win a game.
Well, I mean, imagine last year if we didn't use Tammy Abraham.
If we didn't use Tammy Abraham, we would not be having this discussion right now.
Well, exactly, yeah. So, moving on, I think that the other main point, which we haven't touched on yet, and I don't even think it needs a lot of statistical analysis, is the fact that we were restricted by yellows so early on. And then obviously that red card as well. I mean, we talk about the pressing, that was major. I think that may have spooked us into having to go out and try and force the game, maybe through physicality, but either way, it doesn't allow for a lot of attacking later on.
I'd say, obviously we got 4 yellows plus 2 for Trezeguet, but I felt quite a few of them were sort of players getting caught on their heels. Gilbert's yellow card might have been a dive, but he got caught behind his man.
Yeah.
There was, I think, Neil Taylor got beat to the ball. There was 2 Trezeguets were from just being pressed into. So it did come from Palace's pressure, but at the same time, they just got to be more careful than that.
Yeah. I felt like it was a scrappy game. I felt like we were brought into a scrap and we lost.
Well, I think you've got a fair point there, but we never really did anything the whole game.
Yeah.
Until the fabled last minute, we were just terrible.
Yeah. Well,
There's no other way about
Palace took their eye off it last 5 minutes. I mean, fair play to Dean Smith. He knew that there was no point in defending a 1-goal loss. And we were down to 10 men, so he might as well go for it. It should have paid off, realistically. Considering the fabled last minute, which I think is a discussion for another pod. But, it's crazy to think that Palace shut down with 5 minutes to go, player up. You can probably imagine it with the amount of dominance that they had, but it does show that when Villa do get that little bit of breathing room, they can actually play some good football. Those last 5 minutes are actually quite good. So that was the game, but who do you reckon were the key players that sort of told the story for us?
Well, on the more positive side, and you wouldn't really want this to be a positive side of your team, but Tom Heaton in goal, I thought he had a really good game. To be honest,
had a good season already.
He has, to be fair. There wasn't really anything he could have done about the goal.
No.
It was just a good finish from Ayew and a bit of an unlucky deflection for Ayew to actually get his way through. But there was a shot from Milivojevic in the 40th minute.
You'll go far on this.
40th minute free kick. Milivojevic curved it round to the bottom right corner. That had 0.22 post-shot expected goals, which is basically how likely it is to go in after the shot's been hit.
Right, so that's like a fifth of a chance.
Yeah, and Heaton got over to that and held it. And there was one in the 58, also from Milivojevic, curve shot from about 30 yards out.
Yeah, that was the poster save, that was for the cameras.
That was 0.44 post shot expected goals.
So almost a 1 in 2 chance of it going in.
Almost 50% chance of that one hitting the back of the net, and Heaton got across to that one so well. Yeah. He's made a couple good saves, hasn't he, at his time at Villa already.
He's that kind of keeper. I've found that you're realistically one of two keepers, unless you're, up there in like the top 10 in the world. You're either a fantastic shot stopper or you're a great box ranger, where you're able to command your box and distribute, well. And Tom Heaton's the shot stopper. He's the one that you would happily turn on your TV and watch him make save after save. It's an absolute joy to have someone like that back at Villa. David James reminds me of that, in a sense. He would come out with fantastic saves.
He sort of reminds me of Brad Guzan's good season at Villa, where he'd come out with some of those flying saves.
Yes, love that season.
Hopefully he doesn't end the way of Guzan.
No, although I always thought that Guzan had a bad rap, but there goes a third of my viewership. Yeah, I'm always the one that bats in his cage and I get ridiculed for it. It's fine. So Tom Heaton is good. I tell you what, let's have a goodie and a baddie, shall we? I have a feeling I know who you're going to give as the guy that let us down, but I'll let you run it.
Well, should help out when I tell you that this man didn't end the game on pitch, and no one came on for him. Trezeguet. He did not create a single chance all game. Yeah. Obviously sent off. He lost possession 7 times and made 6 accurate passes.
So he lost the ball more than he actually passed it. Did any of them actually go forward?
One forward pass all game.
Forward.
One pass all game. One of them in the final third. Just like, not a single pass into the box either.
We're going to have to cancel this out for the Egyptian version of this show, I think. You're right. He's not... I don't think he's had a great start either. So, I think this is rather indicative of his season so far. I think that there have been flashes of excellence where, from what we've been told of, and there have been some flashes of it, but in terms of keeping the ball, distributing it into the right channels and creating chances, I think it's actually been rather limited. And it's, he was involved in a scrap last Saturday, and I think that he came out very much on the bottom.
If you're a long-term follower of my account, you'll know that I am a massive, massive fan of Trezeguet. I was really, really excited when that link came about and when we signed him.
As was I.
But he's not impressed one bit so far. I think there's a fair shout to say he's been the worst player on the pitch in every game we've played, if I'm being really brutal.
There's a shout.
And I really, really want him to kick on. I think he will kick on. And I think he needs a bit of patience, though, to be honest.
I think that coming from the Turkish league is a massive step. I think it is a massive step. It's not like coming from the Turkish league to the Championship, and even then we'd have said that was a massive leap. But you're coming straight into the Prem. It is a massive leap, and maybe it will only take a few games, and all will be right with the world. But yeah, it's not been a good start for him, and I think that it was indicative last weekend. I think that it kind of came to a point. Maybe just sitting down and looking over the game, just having a few more weeks in England to understand the game a bit more over here, and maybe it will do him a lot of good.
Well, yeah, obviously we'll have El Ghazi and Jota out there next time out against West Ham, and it'll be interesting to see how they
It will, because there's always competition for places.
Yeah, if that goes well, I can't imagine he'll be installed straight back into the side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, Jota came in for one performance against Everton, was fantastic, and he stayed in. So Dean's clearly going to favour the players that are performing rather than the names. So
exactly, yeah. Right, so I'll tell you what. Let's do aside with the stats for a second and take a look at what you actually think of the game from a more subjective point of view. Each week I'm going to try and have like 5 questions or something like that, of which should be able to give a indication of how the game went for you. And I've called it Villan VAR because of the fact that we just love VAR at the moment. So yeah, hoping that sort of catches on. I've had Villa fans voting on Twitter after the Palace game on these, and yeah, so I'm gonna ask you them, and I just want a yes or a no or whatever the questions are. So the first one: do you think that Villa were worthy of a equaliser
Not at
last
all.
week?
Not at all.
No. Stupidly enough, I mean I went with no as well, but it was split. I think that people think that because of the fact that we did have one that was taken away, that we were worthy therefore, but no, that was I didn't think so. I thought that we'd have been incredibly lucky to have gotten away with that, and I think that what we've discussed already has kind of proven that. So yeah, it's a no from us, and it's a no from the Villa fans as well. 56% said no.
Good to hear. Well,
yeah, well, as yeah, in terms of agreeing anyway. Secondly, now with the way that penalty that dive yellow card decision should I say went down, VAR actually couldn't reverse it for a number of different reasons. One being the fact that they were simply looking at penalty yes or no. So does VAR need to be changed? Does it need to be expanded? And I put 3 different systems here. Yes, for a more of a rugby TMO style system. Yes, in a challenges NFL style way or cricket style way, and no, more VAR won't help. So those are your 3 options.
well, I'm going no again. To be honest, I think the issues with VAR at the minute aren't VAR itself. It's with the referees not knowing how to use it properly, and that horrible rule change for the handballs. That's awful, basically.
Yeah, I mean the handball rule does need looking at, and I think that they will look at that relatively soon. Actually, I know that the clubs have a Premier League meeting on Thursday, so they'll be discussing that and other things. I would love to see VAR in a more of a TMO style. I have to admit, when I first heard that VAR was coming in, I was really hoping it would be rugby style, where you would let a play go to its conclusion, and if the referee felt that there was something that needed checking, the referee would ask the video referee to help out. There'd be a certain set of questions that they could ask, goal, yes or no, for example, or could you check that foul? Something like that. And I think that would have helped, but it doesn't look like I'm going to get my wish. And what really does work in the rugby sense, but not here, is that you can actually see the decisions play out on screen. I thought that'd have been quite good.
Well, they said they were going to do that, but I think there's 2 clubs where they didn't have the screens available to be able to provide that, so they couldn't do it for any.
Do you know which of the 2 clubs? Just to quiz you.
Liverpool.
Yep, there's one.
And I'm not sure the other one. Norwich?
It's Man United.
Oh, really? Wow.
Old Trafford doesn't have a screen. Only has a scoreboard.
That's surprising.
It's surprising, but it is the bigger, older clubs that have the bigger, older stadiums, for example. They're the ones that you don't really see often.
Too much room on seats, isn't it?
See them out often. Exactly, yeah. Right, moving on. What do you reckon the standout issue was? This is incredibly reductive. But and by the way, 56% said yes, TMO style. 25% wanted a challenge system, and only 16% said no to that. So you're in the minority there, and I, as always, stand with the majority. Standout issue. You got the referee's decision, and also the yellows and reds. The wings / lack of shape and ideas as one, and Palace pressure.
Well, obviously, it's very, very easy to blame the referee because everyone knows what happened there. But I think it's just the performance, the lack of shape, as you mentioned, the wingers. We just didn't play our game really, and that's what cost us.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it was. I think that a lack of wing play was definitely the main issue there. Half of the people said referee, but I'm with you. I'm with the 18% that said wings, and the other 18% that said lack of shape. So I think that those together, I think that those were the main issues. Should Trezeguet have seen red? Yes or no?
Yes. Yeah. they were for me, the two most certain yellow cards were both Trezeguet's.
See, I said no. I just don't think that the first one's a yellow. As in, I've seen... if he's being consistent throughout the game, he has to book everyone. If it's that way, I felt like it was too harsh a first yellow. Second yellow, I get. First one, I didn't.
See, I think Trezeguet's were yellows, and I think there were quite a number of Palace fouls that should have been given as yellows, particularly Chiate's one on Grealish in the first half was questionable.
So you go to the more authoritarian route. This is going to create an interesting section over the coming weeks, I can tell. So that was almost split 50-50, yeah. Most actually saying, 56% said yes to seeing red, which is a fair bit of realism from Villa Twitter. Yeah. I'm quite proud of Villa Twitter.
Not too typical. Yeah. Not too typical of Villa Twitter.
No. And finally, where do you see us finishing this season? So the blocks that I put out, 1st to 7th, so that means qualifying for Europe, 8th to 12th, so nice mid-table, 13th to 17th, so flirting with relegation, and 18th to 20th, which is relegation.
Well, first of all, I hope that nobody went for the first option, but I'm sure several voters did. But for me, it's the 13th to 18th, was it?
13th to 17th.
13th to 17th. Yeah.
Yeah. 80. You like me. 83% of people agreed with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty. I definitely think there are teams worse than us. I think that we're going to turn some of this misfortune into points at some point. I think that we're going to start working ourselves out. I think that we need to start playing more to the strengths of our team, but I think it'll come in time.
Yeah, we just got to keep pressing and working out our system, and as you said, playing to the strengths of our players, which is something we did really well last year, but we haven't really seen so much this year so far.
Yeah, right. I tell you what, final section. Very quick look at West Ham then. Give us your main keys to the game for West Ham. Where should we be looking?
Well, I think their crucial man is Seb Heller up top.
Mm-hmm.
Only Raheem Sterling with 3.1 has more expected goals than Heller in the league this season, who's on 3.03, which he's got 3 goals from. And Heller's played 1 game less than the majority of the league. He's the only player who's played more than 90 minutes to have an average expected goals of more than 1.
Right, so more than 1 a game.
More than 1 a game. He's on 1.01, so he's only just more than 1. But then the second highest is Sergio Aguero on 0.79.
That tells you the kind of class that he's in.
But then after Heller, the next highest is Lanzini on 0.75. Then Issa Diop, their centre-back, with 0.56.
Wow. Yeah. A quick one as well. I went and lived over in Frankfurt for a bit, so I've got a bit of a connection to Eintracht Frankfurt, as some people who follow the Twitter might be able to tell by some of the tweets that I send out. And watching Seb Haller was a fantastic experience. He is one of those that when he's hot, he's really hot, but when he doesn't have the ball coming to him, when he's having to go out and actually make the attacks himself, he's not that productive. So he is one that needs feeding, but if you're able to feed him, he will find the net. He's a very gifted goal scorer. He's not one that will create chances out of nothing, but he is the kind of player that will score goals for you. I was gutted to see that West Ham took him from Frankfurt, to be quite honest with you, but very happy with the transfer fee. So, if that's where the goals are coming from, how about the other side? How about the defence?
Well, they're one of the highest pressers in the league, excluding the Man City game where they got absolutely battered 5-0. They've actually only conceded 2 goals. They've got an average PPDA, which is the pressing data I mentioned before, of 8.7, which is one of the lower values in the league. It's lower than the likes of Chelsea, Man United and Tottenham.
Wow.
It's going to be really, really, really difficult to play against that press. However, with us being at home, there is a potential to play through it.
Yeah, so how do you think is the best way to get to Sebastian Haller, for example, to be able to stop the goal threat, but also then be able to turn the stats on their head as they were, and actually get to West Ham's defence.
Well, crucially, 69% of West Ham's chance creation this season comes from Lanzini, Masuaku, and Anderson, who that's attacking midfielder, left back, and left mid. So we've got to stay really, really solid on the right side, and then I think we've got to target that side on the counter attack, because Masuaku will push forward. So we've really got to basically stifle their creativity along the left hand side and with Lanzini, and then we've got to hit them where it hurts, fast and hard.
Well, there you go, folks. It's Masuaku versus Gilbert. That's the main takeaway from this. So there you go, Masuaku versus Gilbert. That's the main thing to watch out for. We've run out of time as Stephen's been taken into a dark room somewhere to play the piano. Just before you go though, Stephen, give us your score prediction and then a little plug for your Patreon for Villa Analytics.
I'll go for the 1-1 draw, and then just as a quick plug, if you check out my Twitter, it'll be promoted on there. If you want to get a bit more detailed look into things, I'll be making some articles for small subscription fee per month, £2 a month, and you can get hopefully a lot of good quality analysis to help with your fantasy football and with your general outlook on football.
Yeah, and your page has been blowing up as well. It's been fantastic to see. We do need to see more stuff like this. I'm definitely a supporter, and I hope that many more will as well. Right, that's it from us. The Villan will be coming out with a podcast this weekend before the West Ham game for you all to enjoy. We've been away for a few weeks. Apologies for that. A myriad of different issues. It's part of the problem of having teachers as your co-hosts. But nonetheless, they're back in school, which means that there's no excuse to be on holiday. That's it from me and Stephen. Thanks very much, and up the Villa.